So today, lifestyle becomes the issue. This is a part of the Bible and the part of Corinthians that becomes very difficult. Many people become very judgmental based on these verses coming up here. Many people hurt many other people because of the rules that Paul oftentimes gives. But I would like to tell you, there are places where Paul says it's an opinion of his own. Remember that. It's messy, sometimes dealing with culture, and lifestyle becomes difficult to follow through on. We're going to speed through this part with a basic idea of why 1 Corinthians chapter 7 was even created. I am Pastor John from Livingstone's and Sunland, Tujunga Seventh Adventist Churches, and it is time for a difficult but rewarding call to prayer. Hello again. Remember, smash the like button, subscribe, become a part of this movement. So we're going to be dealing now with 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And here's what it starts with. Now, for the matters you wrote about, it is good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman. But since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, yet yields it to her husband. In the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body, and yet yields to his wife. Do not deprive each other, except under mutual consent for a time. It's mutual consent. You can deprive yourselves because of prayer and fasting, but then you come back together so that you may not be tempted. Now, this is the root of all of this. There are many Christians that say you absolutely cannot divorce, and you're lost if you divorce. Others say it doesn't matter. Well, let's get to the Corinthian church for a second. Do you remember earlier in the text? Earlier on, I believe it was chapter 3. We're talking about who's going to follow who, and there was this guy, remember, that was having sexual relations with his own father's wife. And yet he felt that he was a leader in the church. Do you understand what Paul's dealing with? You see, in Greek culture, Gnostic Greek culture, when you're of the upper classes, you could do anything you want. Now, a slave culture, they are stuck underneath and they have to live by rules. And many people were a part of that slave culture. But then there were the upperclassmen, and some in Corinth, many in Corinth, were very well-to-do. And they felt that they could do anything they want, since they have Jesus. Since I have Jesus, and since I am an upperclassman, in fact, when I'm with God, I'm higher than all these other people. I'm better than the pagans. I'm better than everybody. So they take their pagan idea and bring it right into the church. And Paul is having to deal with the reality of marriage. My friends, when you're married, you love your spouse. It's that simple. And he talks about sexual relations in that relationship. And the reason why he does is because people were having sexual relations outside of their marriage and calling themselves holy in the process. We see this with weird cultic Christian groups and non-Christian groups. You see this in world religions many times. In the ancient world of worshiping Baal or Diana, these ancient gods had temple prostitution. And God, our God of the Bible, told them, do not go near there. Do not touch it. Do not be a part of it. That was sexuality outside of their marriage, which of course hurt the wife. Because when you're uniting with someone else and then come back to the bed in your house, it hurts your entire family. Disease, destruction. And by the way, love is not possible when sex is constantly being done from one person, one partner to the next. We see this in Los Angeles and today. The Apostle Paul would say the same words today. Guys, stop thinking of always jumping out of your bed. Know your wife. Know your husband. Realize your body is not just yours. It is your wife's body too. And if you are a woman, your body is not your own. It is also your husband's. You see, God gave himself for his church and for his people. He gave of himself. So in the same way, the husband should give of himself for the wife. And in the same way, the woman, the church, us, should serve also Christ as we serve each other. You see, you can't have Christianity work when everybody's having sexual relations with everyone else. And there is no morality, because the whole thinking process of salvation is nixed and destroyed. It becomes a power-slave mentality. Money, sex, and power all intermingle. It creates an aristocracy where I use my either power, money, sexuality, power, strength to overpower another. And men are not the only ones that do it. Women also do that. They use their power over men. This is why Paul tries to make sure that the man and the woman are equal. We don't use our bodies to control the other, whether it be female or male. We mutually make decisions. Isn't that amazing, that idea? Now, I know some of this can be very, when you're reading, you go, whoa, that's very culturally different than what we're used to. But equality means equality. It means we work together. We're not the same. Work together. Anna and I work together. And so, we build a family together. Power is not love. Love is powerful, but power does not lead to love. Control of another human being is not to be swapped for something called love. The prostitution psychosis of control of another person is not Christianity. It's paganism. Jesus calls us to a better life. So he talks about unmarried as well. If you're not married, he says it would be best if you stay unmarried. Now, let me explain that for a second. Marriage, God built. Paul believed that Jesus was coming again in like 10 years or less. So you have to understand his mindset. Later on, he changes a bit. But here, he does have that mindset that Jesus is coming immediately. So why are you going to marry when there's so many people to reach? And on top of that, when there's persecution, you're going to leave your wife behind and go to a far-off country to do mission work. And you're going to allow your wife and your children to be perhaps persecuted? No, that's what he's getting at. Just maybe it's better not to marry. But if you must marry, it's better to marry than to burn with passion. So he's trying to say, if you can't hold back, then yes, marry. Absolutely. Find someone and be appropriate and marry them. And this is all in here. I'm not reading it individually. I know this gets into minutia, but I want you to see this big picture. Does that make sense? I'm trying to do big picture with you. If you have any questions, by the way, you know how to contact the church down in the description box. If you want to contact me, we can sit down and counsel. If you need any counseling, we can work it out, you know? And whenever I counsel a female, I try to make sure I have multiple where appropriate. If you're a male, I can counsel you easily, and we can work together, or even on the phone, we can talk about some of these things. Jesus is telling you here that you're not perfect, and I'm not perfect. And because of that, we need to have guardrails for our lives. Does that make sense? Guardrails for our lives so that we don't fall into the chasm below. And in fact, when it comes to divorce, he even says that I say this, and not the Lord, but there should not be any divorce, right? Then there is verse 12 of chapter 7. To the rest I say, I and not the Lord, if any brother has a wife who is not a believer and she is willing to live with him, he must not divorce her. Now, this is something very important. This has to do with the concerns of change. Just because you become Christian does not mean that you can just throw away the people in the past. Just because you become a new Christian doesn't mean, and you become an aristocrat in that. That's how some people view it. You're better than everyone else now. No, you can't throw people out. In fact, it should make you a better husband or a better wife. You should stick with them. Teach them through your actions that your life is better because of Jesus being in your life. They may never change, but unless, of course, that person goes out and has sexual relations with another, that's different. But to be a Christian at home is the most powerful thing. Many of us like to be Christian at church, over here or over there. But Jesus wants us to be Christian at home as well. In fact, it talks about change of status. Just because you become Christian doesn't mean that you can just tell everyone, forget you. You can tell your parents, I don't love you anymore. You better, I'm not going to be with you. No, it doesn't work like that. To be a Christian makes you more respectful of your family. Even though your family sometimes does things you do not believe in. You respect, you just don't partake. It's kind of like, don't wanting to eat pork. Okay, there's pork served, so I'm going to eat around the pork. You tell them, okay, I'm going to eat around it, right? Your purpose is not to offend and tell others they're bad and you're good. Instead, to be a Christian that reaches the world. Because the real thing that reaches people in this world is people who give their lives to Jesus. And at home, you can see the difference. That's real. That's real. Each person should remain in their situation as they were when God called them. Don't use becoming Christian to throw everyone away and to destroy everything of your past. Instead, become a better. Do not conform to this world, but transform. Like the butterfly. You can be in this world. You can live as you were, but better. Better. Looks like I'm not done yet. I've got a whole section here which I couldn't even finish. But I think you get the concept here. Do not use Christianity as a sledgehammer to make yourself better and to put down others. Or don't use your Christianity to go off and just do things that are immoral. Instead, when you know Jesus, people can see it. People know it. If they hate you anyway, it's okay. Because they hated Jesus too. They hated the prophets in the past. Jesus said, pray for those who persecute you. Love those who hate you. For the prophets of old experienced the same thing. My friends, when you become Christian, it changes your home. My question to you is, have you been Christian all your life and yet those changes haven't happened at home? Maybe you grew up in a Christian family where it wasn't Christian at home. Well, here's the thing. You can start today. Stick with me. The next video, we're going to pray to be the best kind of Christian you can be, because it's now 7:15. God bless you. Remember, smash the like button, subscribe. I want to see you every week on Sabbath and on Tuesday. I'll see you in a moment.